What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Snapchat. Maybe Deadpool's Diner has you down, but today we've got you covered as we talk about probably the best card this month in Gorr The God Butcher. This looks to be the new premier 6-cost card. Alex and I are going to break down all the synergies, our thoughts on if you should get this card, with a lot of good cards coming down the line. And we're going to talk about King Eitri, a card that I might have some certain hate for, in particular for a couple of reasons. But is it worth grinding the game mode for the free card? And we're going to talk about the game mode too, and just kind of the withholding of fun that it might have and Snap might have in a couple of areas. We've got a lot to talk about today on this episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I am joined by the one and only Mr. Alex Coccia. Hello, my friend, on the last week of November. Can't believe we're heading into the holiday season, the winter season already. I can hear Mariah Carey as we speak. Man, we got the decorations up this weekend. It was a lot. I can't even tell you, man. I get all the way down to the storage unit. All right. It's like 30 minutes away. Get all the way there. Get all the stuff in the car. Load it up. I take it up 3 floors of elevators. And guess what? My wife accidentally took the storage key off. So I found that out right then and there. Text her. Oopsie. Took it off. I was left abandoned. And that's how I started my Christmas season off. It's never easy, no matter how easy I think Christmas decorations will be and how I organize it and how it's all set up. It's never easy. And right now, Snap may not be easy for some of you guys. We've got a lot of topics to talk about. Deadpool's Diner, we're going to talk about later. Listen, I don't even think it's a 50-50 split. I think it's like chocolate. Do you like it? 80%, 20%, 20% like it, 80% don't. But we're going to talk about that in today's third subject. But Alex, I got to address the elephant in the room, even though you hate them. New camera, new setup.
Oh my gosh, yeah, dude. So I got my camera back. It's not a new camera. I got it repaired, and that was great. And then last week, while streaming, I accidentally destroyed my microphone, which sounds crazy, but I did like a celebration where I threw my hands up and like spun around. And when I did that, I caught the USB cable in my microphone and like ripped out like the actual port and broke the PCB. Like I destroyed my mic somehow. It's like, I can't believe I managed to do that. Classic Alex move, over celebrating a win in Marvel Snap, destroys his equipment. So now, yes, we got our camera back. No more webcam. We got an actual DSLR. And then I got a brand new microphone set up. So I'm excited, man. I feel like I'm finally prepared to do the Snapchat again, because we've been running on like backup gear for the last several weeks.
Well, buddy, with all the new gear, what are we talking about with that new gear on your side of the Snapchat?
Cozy, on my side of the Snapchat, we're going to be talking about Fenris Wolf in review, giving it our thoughts, our rating, and of course, whether or not you should be spending your hard-earned tokens and keys on it. We're also going to be talking about the best cards in Marvel Snap. We'll be going through our top 10 list to give you an idea of which are the cards that are having the greatest impact on the meta. And then finally, as always, our Snapchat mailbag.
Well, let's jump right in. Let's jump into Gorr The God Butcher, who I think is going to be probably the best card this month. I mean, obviously Surtur has, big shoes to fill. We knew he was going to be really good. And we kind of talked about this when the month began. Can't believe we're already here at the tail end of it. Felt like half as long as October, man. I feel like October was super long. This one has gone by in a blink of an eye. Gorr is coming to the game. Before we jump into him, he comes alongside Havoc and Legion, which is par for the course. Really good card, coming with a pretty lackluster week. Legion's a good card, but by now you either have him or, listen, he's a good contender to get series dropped. If you're listening to this today, I think the series drops are going to be announced either today, tomorrow, this week at some point. So, unfortunately, we can't cover that subject now because we don't exactly know what it is. But we're hoping it's a banger. That's what we've been saying. But besides that, let's talk about Gorr. Let's talk about the God Butcher. And he's a 6-cost card with a -1 power to him. Ongoing, +2 power for each on-reveal card in play. And so we definitely have ourselves a big new 6-drop card. What do you think of a man? Immediate star rating.
So, immediate star rating, I'm going to go to 4. Originally, when we did our preview earlier, like now a month ago, wow, I can't believe it's been that long, I was kind of in a more hesitant position where I was like, you know what, I can see this card flopping a little bit. And now that I've kind of like really taken a look at what the meta looks like now, because meta evolves constantly, I think there's a lot of on reveals being used. I think that like even cards like Frigga and Malekith have encouraged more on reveal use. And so naturally, I think that that Gorr has a better position now than he did prior. Also, when you consider like what the big stat sticks are doing right now in terms of at the 6 kind of costed slot, I feel like Gorr can compete there. So I think I'm comfortable with a good 4-star rating here. But as you mentioned before, these spotlight caches are terrible. Like we've had, like I like Havoc, but that doesn't mean I like playing Havoc, but he's not a good card, right? You know what I mean? Like I like his design. And Legion's been in the spotlight cache like 3, maybe 4 times. This might be the 4th time. So it's like a little unfortunate that the spotlight cache is as weak as it is, because I think that a lot of people are excited for Gorr.
Yeah, and I actually think both these are going to drop probably in series. If I were to take a guess, they both seem like they're ready to go to the next one down. But, you know, again, we'll see. Maybe Legion stays in 4. I think he's already 4, so I don't know if he'll go to 3. But listen, man, since Snap has come out, we've had a universal 6-drop in power decks, right? We've had, Dr. Doom, Magneto, then we had Blob, and then Red Hulk, obviously, was for the time being. And he's kind of still the one to play. Blob's kind of fell off a little bit. Dude, I gave this card a 5-star rating. I think it was like the one that I wanted to go off the beaten path, and I think I might still stick with that. I think this is a really good card, and I think he's going to stay as that. This is a card that, to me, can't miss because of his board-wide effect. Yes, there are some things that could go bad if you happen to play a bad lineup and have bad draw, but for the most part, I think this thing just gets massive. I mean, the +2 for each on-reveal card in play is just such a big deal, and it's in place. You can judge if you want to finish with him or not. I think he's going to be a nice finishing card for a lot of decks. I like Gorr a lot. I really do, and with really strong months to come, it's hard to determine which cards to buy, but this one feels like he might win that slot of like, okay, I think he is worth that spot and worth grabbing. That being said, those synergies are a little weird and non-specific. We got a lot to break down in that category. And Alex, I'll go ahead and ship it off to you, my friend, and let you start us off with Synergy. Where do you see him best played?
Okay, so this is a little strange, and I kind of think that like, I don't want to say that negative is a very natural spot for Gorr, but at the same time, when you have a 6 -1 stat line, how do you not bring up negative? Especially as someone who has an ongoing ability, can be played alongside something like a Mystique, which naturally makes those decks as well. Iron Man, Mystique, Gorr, they could start being a core component of like a much more competitive Mr. Negative deck. Now, for those of you that have joined us since the launch of the game, you might be thinking, Alex, Mr. Negative has had moments like the Negative Surfer deck, but it's never really been meta or near the top. During the beta, Mr. Negative was one of the best decks you could play. It was legitimately the top meta contender, and that changed ultimately after launch. And so a card like this, I feel like, is a massive tool that Mr. Negative can use, and I don't think they necessarily balance for Mr. Negative, you know what I mean? So I think that there's going to be releases here and there at times that might take the like Mr. Negative approach by surprise. I mean, they shouldn't be surprised, but what I mean is like if they're not balancing for negative, there's going to be opportunities for it to kind of take a stranglehold of the meta when a card like Gorr gets released.
Yeah, I think Negative is a fun one to start out with. I mean, Negative, I don't think he is ever like just going to be that meta deck, but this does make it stronger. He continues to get these cards that kind of, you don't always need to have the perfect flip with the Jane Foster pull and have everything go right. Obviously, the thing that does go right for him is that we have a lot of on reveals in there. And I wanted to slow it down and just say, listen, guys, if you and your opponent each play 3 on reveals, which if you look at the meta, that's pretty likely to happen. I mean, very likely to happen. You already have your Gorr at 11 power, and that's at a, like I said, a thing that's probably bound to happen within the gameplay. And so you have something already kicking off so well, and then you've got cards that can boost him even more. Obviously, as we just said, Mr. Negative's going to be huge for a free play, essentially. But then you also have yourself the added power on the flip. But then you start to compare it with other cards that could go into, these old negative builds that we used to do, like Bast, Ravonna. Ravonna probably being one of the more strong, just overall synergies with Gorr. I would say Ravonna probably synergizes way more with ongoing cards, as Gorr is an ongoing card. But just to be able to have that in the shell, and then even going with who I would say is my MVP, and I don't want to stop talking about Mr. Negative, but my kind of like, wow, if you can really get things spinning here, Mystique has got a really good chance to go crazy, because Mystique is just 1 power more than he is essentially, and it has the exact same effect. So you'll have to figure out how you kind of get that engine rolling. But just having Ravonna play him early into Mystique, and then you have other on reveals going down, you start to look at a pretty crazy potential kind of new archetype too, which is fun. But yeah, man, I think Mr. Negative alone could definitely use a little bit more fun, a little bit more consistency, and Gorr's going to bring that. And that's like the fun side, right? Gorr is one of those cards we can go in and try to look at where we think he's going to be the most fun or add to decks that need the help. But Gorr is just a great stat card, in my opinion, and a very just flex vanilla card.
So I love that you bring up like the synergy with Mystique, because Mystique is often like, it's a card that allows you to really take advantage of a very specific circumstance. So like old school Marvel Snap, Pool 2, Pool 3, early Pool 3, you're using Mystique to copy Devil Dinosaur. Now you have Mystique copying things like Ronin and stuff. But although like the 0 power that she has kind of mitigates her upside there. With Gorr, she actually, as you said, she starts 1 power higher. You know what I mean? And so if you can get Gorr out either on turn 6 and play Mystique 7, or if you can negative them, play them on the same turn, or if you can ramp into Gorr, right, with something like an Electro who has the ongoing ability, but also has an on reveal itself, then you can do something like Gorr into Mystique. But I think that line's weak, obviously, because you're only playing the Mystique as a single card. But just trying to say here that, like, if you consider how powerful Gorr's effect is, and the fact that it's an ongoing, Mystique's stocks definitely do rise, especially as a follow-up play to Gorr on a future turn.
Which I think really brings a good point up, guys. Who is Gorr for? All right, that's the name of this. This should have been the name of this this segment. Who is Gorr for? And that's where I think it's really cool. If you like to have fun in the game, you can go Mr. Negative, and Gorr's going to be cool in there. If you like big cards, he's going to be able to do that. Maybe even some on-reveal stuff. But also, he's for the metagamers. He's for the people that like to play the more try-hard decks, like Balance, who is obviously a huge winner. We could kind of gear that direction if we want to. I mean, Balance decks as a whole, I think, are going to benefit just because of the number of on-reveals. Obviously, Balance profits the most from on-reveals. The Rockets, the Silver Sables, the Sages. That's going to really take it up, not to mention Beast and Toxin and Falcon. All of these are on-reveals. And then you've got this massive finisher that you can either combine and finish your bounce stuff by turn 5, or just have them kind of slotted in there as this finisher option. And that right there is like, that's what's cool about him. Who's Gorr for? It's kind of for everybody. He kind of fits both molds.
He does, and he has like this really wide application. I feel like he's analogous to something like a Red Hulk, where like Red Hulk was a cool buy at the time, not only because it was very, very good, it had to get nerfed, but because it can kind of go in any deck. And it was a very good like capture all for, hey, I need a big power play on turn 6 that can go in any deck, and that was good for people, right? And I think Gorr kind of does the same thing as well. Very naturally, I feel like the default card design in Marvel Snap is an on reveal card. Ongoing cards and other cards along those lines, they're not as common. I feel like you get a lot of on reveals, and so Gorr, as more on reveals get released, just gets better. Like, you know what I mean? It gets better for both. If your opponent's meta call is they're playing cards and they have lots of on reveals, but just like yourself too, right? Like if you're playing a deck with lots of on reveals, or you're likely going to be anyways, but that's kind of what you mentioned prior, that like try to build a deck with absolutely no on reveals. Like, yeah, we got Spectrum ongoing decks, and Tribunal decks don't have that many on reveals, but still there's enough that Gorr is not a completely dead card. It doesn't sit at -1.
That's what's cool about him, right? You've got a card that is for and against. Like, he's the defense, he's the offense, he's a counter to even something like Discard, right? Discard has a lot of, a good amount that need the on reveals to trigger it. And so now you have a little bit more of a defense to go over the top against that Dracula that's doing really good right now, right? It's good with bounce. It's fantastic against bounce, right? It's good with the Asgardians. It's great against it. So you've got this thing cooking. But also my point is too, like, let's take Darkhawk for an example, the staple deck that's around. It's been around, always going to be around. The best Darkhawk build right now, you have, these are the on reveal cards: Korg, Cassandra Nova, Gambit, Juggernaut, Moon Knight, Black Bolt, and then you could even have in there, obviously, Rock Slide. That's 5-6 cards in there that are on reveal. For a deck, you wouldn't really think, oh, that's an on reveal deck. And so you can look at the top of the meta, and there's so many different on reveals plugged into even the best decks that this guy's just going to have that value. He's counting for both sides. That power is counting for both sides, and your deck's built for it. The opponent's deck usually has to use it, and that's where I think he shines. There is one deck in particular, Alex, that I want your thoughts on, and I think it might be a sleeper for this guy. My friend, I think that Zoo might be this guy's, like, incredible home. Okay, now you're going to have to build Zoo a little bit differently and less traditionally than what we have, because you do want to make sure that the one costs are going to be on reveal at a base. But you have Squirrels, you have Nikos, you have Rockets. Like, you already have plenty of other ones that go well. But what I love about this, obviously Sable, Snow Guard, that gives even more, on reveals, which is really cool. What I love about this, though, is that this is perfect to build into the later rounds. Obviously, you have Shauna that's an on reveal, okay? Shauna summons cards. So in play, right? In play, I think it's just on location. So there you go. You got even more on reveals. I just went to the ones. You can just see just how many one costs there are that are on reveals, right? But then it's like, okay, then you go into the later turn and you've got your finisher in Gilgamesh, who's another on reveal, plus him as that final over the top. You don't need to rely on Gilgamesh going stupid insane because now you have 2 cards with the big power. This is where I'm testing him first. This might be my favorite home for the God Butcher.
I like it. I like that a lot. And the thing I want to mention as well is it's kind of like a point aside to what you were mentioning is like you mentioned like Squirrel Girl, for instance, right? And I know that there are people listening like, hey, Cozy, you're huffing hopium. Squirrel Girls, the squirrels don't have on reveals. And I would say to that doesn't matter. Because if you think about what the baseline for the card is, it's so high. And here's a perfect example, okay? Ajax. When Ajax first came out, people were running decks without Luke Cage. They were actually debuffing their own cards. They're using Typhoid. They were doing so. Yeah, Ajax could get to 20-something power, but they were destroying everything else in the process. The best performing Ajax decks now run a Luke Cage, and Ajax ends up at approximately the power level of something like a Gilgamesh. It's not about the ceiling. It's about the quality of the floor. And so with Gorr, if you're playing a on reveal based deck that's like a zoo deck, the squirrels don't really matter because, yeah, you're going to get the Mockingbird out there, who's not necessarily an on-reveal either. But Gilgamesh and everything else that comes alongside with that package, it just raises Gorr's floor, and you just have a tremendous amount of power output. So, no, I like that a lot. And we see it, we talk about it all the time. Getting too greedy with specific cards and trying to dive too deep into min-maxing them doesn't often result in the best decks. The best decks are often the ones that utilize a consistent floor to just make the good card good.
So you're saying for the floor of Gorr, it could be 4?
Like 4 stars? Or 4 power?
I just wanted to say as many rhymes as I could spit out. I want to do my inner Eminem from my childhood. But also, yeah, what I like about that in Zoo is that Gilgamesh, if you don't pull him, Gorr can serve as that finisher that you're kind of really looking for, you're hoping for. And so I just love that home. I don't think people have thought about it as much. And so I kind of wanted to go a different route than what I've kind of seen out there floating around. And one more thing, a deck that I played in Deadpool's Diner to kind of get up to get King Eitri was Dracula Dump, because I just think it's a really fun deck to play with Strong Guy and friends. And I was thinking about this, and because he's ongoing, and because the way his text reads, ongoing plus 2 power for each on reveal card in play, right? Do you remember that Null and Dracula were a thing for a little bit? Null would get the power in hand. Dracula would then be able to use that. You didn't have to play him down. Remember that little like fun deck that was going around for a while? I think Gorr's the same way because it's in play, and I think Gorr's going to get his power in the hand because it's the cards in play. So I think that naturally you could do that. I don't know if it'll be good, but you could do it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to test it, right? Like that actually is a cool call. I had not considered that. If the ongoing statistics update in hand, will Dracula harvest the power?
That's
Cozy's
how it was
cooking.
with Null.
I like
That's
it.
how it was with Null, and I think it still is with Null. And so with Dracula Dump, a lot of ones kind of makes sense. I was already thinking Zoo. That could also be another home. And also Mill. Mill could also kind of work, I guess, too.
Yeah, well, actually, something we need to mention here, and I was trying to like come up with different lines and stuff that I thought was going to work particularly well. One that I think might be interesting that, I don't know how good it's going to be, but one you could consider is Invisible Woman on turn 2 into Mystique turn 3, and then you finish on Gorr with 6. And then what happens is you play Gorr, and then Mystique will copy the Gorr effect after Invisible Woman. So if you're looking for that kind of play in 6 turns, then I think that the Invisible Woman play could be interesting. And at worst, it eats Eliath, but you probably win the other lanes anyway because Eliath is hitting a Invisible Woman +1. You know what I mean?
Maybe sneak a Killmonger in there too to counter the bounce as well. And you're looking great. That Invisible Woman all of a sudden has so much value. That's actually kind of fun. I like that. Heck, you could even do, I suppose you wouldn't, but you could do Supergiant too. It has the same kind of cause and effect if you want to have that hit later. But just an awkward card, man. Supergiant's so weird. Another deck that I think could be an absolute just winner. And people, again, not seeing this brought up. You guys know I want to bring you guys this stuff for those that get to listen. That's just a little bit off the beaten path. Straight up, I think Scream is one of the best cards right now in the game because of what she does for an archetype. Go look at that win rate for that movement deck. It's so good. It's so consistent. We said it from the beginning. If you like that play style, you're rewarded with one of the better decks in the game right now. But that deck does not have a finisher, right? Like it's like you kind of have Magneto, but that's a little weird sometimes. And sometimes you can even lose the game because it's only one steal, right? So that's kind of awkward. When I was looking at it, I was looking at the Power 5s and Arrow and whatnot that you can play in that deck. Dude, there are so many on reveals in this deck naturally. Like there's just Spider-Man, Polaris, Stegron, Arrow. You're building into that. Scream is a winner in herself. But remember, if you don't pull Scream, it can feel weird. The deck's still running like 60% with like 400 games test data. Super consistent deck. And then Gorr fits right into it as that perfect finisher. Like, I think this is a tremendous card. Juggernaut, tremendous card for the Scream archetype.
Yeah, that archetype's been seeing a lot of experimentation, and it continues to run like 50 to 60% win rates. Even though they did buff Scream, not buff, they compensated Scream for the change to Juggernaut. Those decks have been remarkably good, and you're right, there's a ton of on reveals in them. They do have like some challenges around not drawing Scream and what a game plan looks like, and that's why those decks still will run Cravens and Kingpins. Some Kingpins are being cut, but I like what you're saying because you're running naturally so many on reveals anyways. You could very easily cut a slot like the Miles Morales that's making those decks, and you can use Gorr the God Butcher instead. And I like that a lot because like one of the challenges we have is that like, so a lot of the top meta decks, like one of the top meta lists right now is Bounce. Bounce is difficult to deal with from a tech perspective because it relinquishes the initiative very often. Like it's able to kind of bring everything up, and then you're like, well, now I can't Killmonger because, you know, that's why we're even playing Invisible Woman in some like Sarah Miracle style, Sarah Control style decks. But with Gorr, because he's an ongoing, when they throw the initiative and you play Gorr, he just ramps back up as they play their cards down, right? So I do like what that does here because there was often times where I was playing a Scream deck and I have Magneto in my hand, and it's kind of crazy that Magneto does not feel like enough right now, but he doesn't feel like enough. He doesn't feel like he has enough impact on the board right now. He's great against Destroy, like you're moving Venoms around and stuff like that, but against the more popular bounce-based decks, you're not moving anything around usually. Maybe the Beast comes for a ride and you're like, okay, sick, I guess, but yeah. I like what you're saying here. I feel like Gorr could potentially be a very nice top-end closer for a deck like that.
Yeah, so listen, I mean, we just stated, like, we got the fun decks negative, we got just the consistent decks. I mean, hell, you could even just go Agent Venom and Bast and get that -1 up to a 3, up to a, an easy 3, and then discount it with Ravonna if you happen to be able to have different play lines, if it doesn't get that discount. So there's, like, just good stuff out there. Werewolf by Night even had some builds that you can get in. Obviously, he's going to want more 100 reveals, so you have a little double synergy going on there, and you can kind of finish strong. And then what's cool about Gorr is he's an ongoing card, so you build up your wolf throughout the battle, and then you've got him to finish off, and it doesn't like do that awkward thing where like freaking werewolf goes into the lane, and you're like, wait, I needed you to stay put. So that's obviously we all know we're not going to play him; he's too complex, but it is there as an option, which I do like altogether. So for me, that was kind of what I saw in the card. I think there is a lot of stuff to be said about him. Anything else to close us up?
Yeah, I got 2 more cards we gotta talk about. We got it. The first is Agent Venom. I think Agent Venom could potentially see play with Gorr because naturally you're mitigating some of that downside there with that +3 power. Like, does Gorr actually need 4 power? I'm not sure if he does, but in theory, if you're playing Mystique and you're playing Gorr, you can play Agent Venom. That's where I'm starting with my deck design. Because if you're playing those 3 together, you may as well have the Agent Venom in. And Cozy, I have a question for you. Do you have your medicinal grade hopium available? Because we're going to be huffing it pretty hard here. Is this not a massive buff to Emperor Hulkling?
Yeah, dude. Hey, listen. I am on the camp of, you know how we were defending Grandmaster early, people were laughing at us? I'm now a defender of not exactly he's the best card. Dude, go look at the dude's stats. Oh, that's Scarred. Yeah, well, his stats are actually a lot better. Go look at the dude's stats, though. Like, it's better than you might think. Like, Hulkling is actually not the worst card. It's not. He's got a good cube advantage. His win rate's not terrible. It's a silly bump up to him. I mean, that becomes, just a win card. Like, just, you win the game. I mean, that thing is going to be 20 plus power on the regular. So, yeah, you are correct. I don't even need the medical grade hopium. I'm just here for it.
That's hilarious. Still one of my favorite videos you've ever launched, by the way. If you've not watched the Emperor Hulkling video that Cozy made, one of the greatest introductions in all Marvel Snap cinema. So yeah, kudos to you, buddy.
And Alex, I gotta put you on the spot here. Okay? You remember this man? There's a Legend of the Man. Early November, King Eitri, one of his favorite cards. He loved it. How do you feel about him?
Wait, I loved him?
You loved King Eitri. You loved him.
I didn't love him. I said he was okay.
You loved him, Alex. You loved him.
Love is a very strong word.
I'm rolling the tape right now. I'm stopping what I'm doing. Editor Cozy, stop and roll the tape. But star rating, what do you give it?
Star rating, I'm like in the 3.5, 4 range.
Whoa!
No, listen, I said 3.5. I'm leaning more like,
like
the 3.5 and 4.
I'm like a 1.5 to 2.
No way, you're 1.5, dude. Think about what you can do. You play him on 1, you play Thor on 3. It goes into the deck, you activate. So like it literally just comes back to your hand in turn 4. All right, maybe I talked a little positive about King Eitri, but I still hold that. I still think King Eitri's probably good. I gave him like a 3.5. I don't often do 0.5s, right? I see him being potentially decent. But like, yeah, obviously Gorr's better. Like, let's be honest. Like, Gorr is clearly better. And in some regard, King Eitri represents a little bit of a filler card for, let's just say, the free mode that they did release. But honestly, like, I don't think it's that bad. A 1 cost activate? Like,
yeah.
I think that if you're going to have an activate, making it a 1 cost is perfect, no?
Yeah, I hate this POS. But that's more personal than anything else. I hate him. Look, if you guys saw my video, okay, family weekend, they decided to go out to the beach, and I'm like, hey, I gotta get this video out, you know, my community depends on me. And this guy decided just to be the absolute worst throughout the entire, it was like 2 hours of filming, bro. This guy would either not be there at all, or he would come around turn 4, turn 5. And here's the problem with him. If you got him on curve, he was pretty damn good. But he's just kind of awkward. In a Lockjaw deck, I liked him a lot better, like way better. But in just like a pure Asgardian deck that you would imagine, the problem with that is if you don't draw him, he's effectively dead after, I mean, it could be as early as turn 2, because you want to do Thor on 3, you want to do, Bill on 4. The problem though is this is one of the few activate cards you can't even play on 5. You can't even play this guy on turn 5 because you activate him and he draws the card. So you activate him on turn 6, doesn't work. He's one of the few activate cards that you have to play him so early or he loses his value completely. And on top of that, you could draw the hammer, right? Like obviously best play line is put him on 1, play Thor, activate same turn, grab the card, then the deck, or get the deck back to normal, all that good stuff. Same with Bill. But then there's times where your best play is just Jane and you did play him early. And so it's just so awkward. It's just such a weird card. I mean, it felt like he truly could have just been like anybody else in the deck, and I would have preferred the tech option compared to what he offered. And it was because of that why it was just so frustrating. Or you pull him on 6, or a number of other things that could happen. I will say that him and Thanos is solid. It's fine because you don't care as much about, it's not awkward to play. You're not looking for the Thor. You're not looking for the, and same as in Erisham, right? 2 archetypes I'm sure people are thrilled that he fits into. But he just felt weird because of that. I think they need to give him better power too. I think a 1/3, I don't care if it's power creep on 0 or whatever. He needs something because it was super awkward the way that he fits in.
I like this. We have a bit of a different dynamic here because I don't have the card yet. I actually, it crossed my mind. I'm like, you know what? Like, should I grind for it? I'm like, no, I'm not putting myself through that, man. I just can't do it. I just can't. So I just did it. I'm glad you did. And so I'll bounce some questions off you, okay? So right off the top here, now naturally, it gets destroyed by the Korg Rock Slide, right? Like that type of those types of decks destroy him, right? And I like what you said as well about the potential window for his play, because I originally was designing decks that were going to utilize Lockjaw. I liked the idea of like, okay, I wondered like, okay, what if we use Lockjaw and then you pull the Mjolnir, you play it into the Lockjaw, you pull it back out because you can control the activate sequence to take advantage of King Eitri and the kind of the Lockjaw play. But you're right in saying that, like, on turn 3, you want to play Thor. On turn 4, you want to play Beta Ray. On turn 5, you want to play Lady Jane. And then when does this guy actually come out if he's not coming out on turn 1? And if you have both him and you have Jane Foster, the best thing you could do is, if you don't, well, where do you have Lockjaw? Because you can King Eitri play the thing in and then Jane Foster back out and stuff. But things get kind of confusing. And I can see why it really does not take a spot in that deck and really like propel it forward. Now, I want to kind of touch on the Thanos discussion you had, because I want to come back to that. So you had a chance to test in Thanos, correct?
Yeah, and Lockjaw did work better. It definitely worked better because you're trying to do less chaotic stuff, and you're trying to get less perfect play lines and draws and hands and all that stuff. And in Thanos, yeah, it was. I mean, Airship Thanos is already at such a state that it doesn't even need to be in there. But yeah, I mean, there were times. There was one game in particular that I used Eitri to get my last stone to buff up Thanos, which was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I actually want to touch on. So in one of the most recent OTAs, I don't think it was the latest one, it was the one before that. No, it was whatever. Whenever they changed Thanos, one. Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was the most recent one. So they basically said that they're taking a look at the way they want to utilize stones in Thanos. So now Thanos got a huge buff, obviously, but they're still taking a look at the way they want Thanos to play as an archetype. And so it has never been the case in Thanos where the win con has been get Thanos to 20 power. It's just never been that. Like, we just have never really cared about that. We cared about, like, oh, the stones are getting buffed by Khazar and Blarvel. They're drawing cards. Like, there's all these, like, tertiary ways we've been winning games and not necessarily using Thanos himself. However, if they change the stones so that the win condition becomes getting Thanos to 20 power, whatever it happens to be, suddenly something like a King Eitri makes a lot of sense, because it almost acts like a Mind Stone to some degree, where you're guaranteed to pull a stone from your deck, right? And then it therefore allows you to ensure that you can maybe get that Thanos pop-off you're looking for.
Yeah, and they confirmed. They even said, I think the stones are confirmed to get a buff. They just didn't want to do it before the holiday break. I think it's like the reading that I saw from it. And so, like, yeah, and if the stones get even better, hell yeah, right? Because right now the stones, it's like they're draw engines, and then they kind of buff them up. But yeah, I agree. I do think that he could definitely. It's so funny, man. He's the one, forging the hammer to help defeat Thanos, and then it's like, okay, he may just be best with Thanos, and he's like, he might just decide, you know what, screw Thor. I think I'm just gonna go with the guy that's gonna win this thing. So yeah, it could be there, and then yeah, same as Arishem. It's like, if you get him as a draw, it's like, okay, you get another draw. Loki, too. I went up against Loki a few times, and it's like, damn, I hated it because I went against Loki. They took my deck. They got this for free. They played it down, and they drew a card. It's like, it was so frustrating, dude. I was like, I just gave him the keys to the kingdom there. But yeah, it's free, but it's I mean, you're not at all going to have the same remorse for not getting Cassandra Nova as not getting King Eitri. But there is a line that I think that he'll be good. Better later. And keep in mind, guys, my hate's personal. Like, he ruined my weekend. He absolutely ruined my weekend. So, he's not the worst. He's just not fantastic.
So 2 things I want to touch on. 1, is it possibly a canon moment that he helps Thanos more than he helps Asgard? Because didn't he craft the gauntlet for Thanos?
Yeah. I mean, in the lore.
Boom.
There you go.
Look at that. Canon moment. The second thing is, so how did you find him in both Arishem and Loki? Like, did you find that it was just awesome?
Yeah, I haven't played Arishem in 3 months, so I wouldn't know, but I went against it a lot, right? And so I went against it, and it was good. It snowballed well. Luckily, the Asgardian deck plays pretty good against Loki, like the way that deck just kind of curves out comparably to Loki, and then them getting access to your cards, it just doesn't work for them as well. But it's like it's a free card draw, and so you can't hate that. I mean, you do end up with him, and that's the problem. It's a free card draw, but he takes the spot of that, right? And so it's like, do you want him to even take the spot of that? That's why I think a 1/3, it's like, okay, at least he's marginally a good static card at that.
Okay, I hear that because yeah, at 1/2 I can see him being a little underwhelming. So what do you come in at star-wise? Because you didn't quite say. You just started popping off like you want to give him 0.
Yeah, dude, I mean, pretty much after him ruining my life. Dude, like a 1.5. Because I just don't think he elevates the deck to such a degree into an archetype that's already niche. So yeah, I'm gonna give him a low. I think I gave him that when we went in, so I'm gonna stick with that.
Wow, 1.5. That's like OG US agent range.
Yeah. I'm curious on your thoughts once you get him when we do the season recaps. That'll be next week. So test him out, go through the painful labor of Deadpool's Diner, and let me know your thoughts on that. Deadpool's Diner, and or another subject, just kind of just talking about some of the withholding of fun, if you will, because I think this addresses a couple birds in one stone, right? You've got card acquisition, and it's just not, unless series drop, and I just don't expect it, right? Like at this point, I used to say, like, I can expect this from them. I just don't right now. If the series drops don't have like a slew of cards dropping, they know it's not okay. They have to know, because if series drops happen every 6 months, okay, and in 6 months they release 25 cards, and they only drop 12. It's so unsustainable. So like, my point is, I think Deadpool's Diner doesn't do well because the other problem with the game is like when someone wants to come and pick up the game or they come back to the game, it's withholding fun, right? The way it's designed, it's withholding that fun. Where a card game should be fun, and High Voltage gave fun. The improvements really were just some voice lines, and a couple other things Bubs wise, but it's just competitive. It's not fun. It's more competitive, and I think that's the ultimate thing about it.
You know what really struck me with Deadpool's Diner? Was that they called it Deadpool's Diner 2.0. And you know what that felt like? That felt like the entire dev team taking turns slapping me in the face. Yeah. It's like, man, that was not Deadpool's Diner 2.0. Like when I say 2.0 on something, like 2.0 means like, bro, like this is new and improved. This is a different beast altogether. They improved the messaging around some of the things. Like they had like the pop-up show the bubs, and like, hey, they tried to improve like like you don't have enough bubs to play at this table. Like they tried to improve the messaging. Got the voice lines pretty hype the first twice, maybe first couple times you hear the voice lines, and then it's just the same thing over and over again. And here's the problem. Okay, I give them credit. It's a free mode. And there's a lot of rewards. You got to give them the credit for the rewards. They're there. There's a lot there. I appreciate that. I don't know why it's a Jane Foster variant. Like, that makes no sense to me. Should have been a Fire King Eitri variant. Even isn't like we have the Conquest Jane Foster too. And I love Jane Foster, but I got my Archer, and you got your, I don't even know who made that one, the one with the cape that you love so much.
Yeah, I just think there's just no art on King Eitri. That's the only thing I can think of. There's just no one's drawn the guy. Yeah, I want to quickly say, like, it's free. Here's my problem. I actually defend the people that are saying it's fun, because I think it is fun. The initial climb to unlock him, I enjoyed. I did.
That's not bad.
But here's my point though. I won, right? So like I was winning and I was doubling the stakes, and I'm like, and I never had that moment of like, I'm out of bubs. I'll come back 3 hours from now, or I'll buy more. The moment that feeling hits, it's done. It's just so it's done. And so it's like, man, get that free table going, get that person back in. And then it's fun, because then you're like, okay, if you're gambling all in, it's like poker. You can't do that, all right? Like it's that kind of game mode. But when you're literally at the point where you have to stop and either pay to play the thing, right, or just sit there and come back, that's what kills it. The pure game mode and the rewards are both good. Everything else around it is not.
Have you ever played a free-to-play game where like the starting is like really fun and you're going and going, then all of a sudden progression gets slower and slower, and it's like at first it feels like you're treading through water, right? And then it feels like quicksand, and then all of a sudden you're just hitting your head against a brick wall, and you're like, oh, this is where I gotta pay. They left this no man's land of no Bub Mart upgrade again. They did it twice. Last time there's like that segment where it's like just huge, like kind of grinding middle segment, and I thought to myself, just put a Bub Mart in there. Little Bub Mart, boom, and all of a sudden everyone's happier. Yep. That exponential increase kind of gets you going, and they didn't do that. And I thought, like, just do that. Forget what the voice lines are. Just do that, and that fixes everything. That fixes so much about the game mode, 100%. And I want to know, Cozy, you said you had fun, but also about 7 minutes ago you said that like playing Deadpool's Diner with King Eitri basically ruined your entire weekend. Yeah. So which is it, damn it?
Replay the tape. I said getting up to earning him was a lot of fun. And then when I had him, I went back in with him, and I cleaned, like, Vegas won. I absolutely left Vegas with nothing, not even the clothes on my back. King Eitri stole them off my dead corpse, and so that was not fun. But yeah. It's funny because you say, do you know games where it's free to play and then it's a slog? First, that's pretty much every mobile game, which is
pretty much everyone, yeah.
Which is why, like, and I'm all for Pocket. I hope it goes well. I really do. But the comparisons to Snap just cackle me. It's like, it's a new game. Every new game starts off on a great foot, and it's those that stand the test of time, which is why I thought Snap was doing so well for the first year, because it was able to do that. And kind of have that. They changed the landscape of what a free-to-play mobile game was when it came out, and now it's like, okay, they're just trying to continue their quarter losses or gains to shareholders. I don't know. They need to maintain the fun. They need to get back to that. We've talked about this already in a subject, but January looks to be the month that they're going to try to do that, and they got to restore the fun. They have to. They know it. They definitely know it. I've talked with them enough. They know it. But at this point, you got Pocket, you got Rivals, and those are two mega giants that are going to take away from it.
I got two things I got to say, and I love what you're bringing up here, okay? Now, the first thing that you're touching on is like Pokemon Pocket and stuff like that. And they should be putting their best foot forward. They should be really setting up, okay, guys, we got competition. We won Game of the Year awards and all that stuff. We rode that wave. Now we got to earn. We got to earn the audience. We got to earn it. We got to put the best effort we can in. And this Deadpool's Diner's not that, which is kind of disappointing. I thought High Voltage was great, right? But one thing I want to mention, in Snap's defense, a lot of people talk about the free packs you get in Pokemon Pocket. But one thing that people do not mention, as someone who plays, you literally mess me while I'm opening packs with my kids. Buddy, 99% of the cards you open in Pokemon Pocket, they're garbage filler cards. They're garbage cards. And Marvel Snap does not have colors the way like Magic will. Like a lot of card games have like, oh, you got, grass, you got, black Magic and all that stuff. They don't do that. Every card can be played with every other card. Marvel Snap, each individual card carries weight because it is its own entity that actually has value in some way, shape, or form. And King Eitri, ironically, is one that doesn't have as much value as we'd like. But King Eitri is even better than some garbage filler card that you open in a Pokemon pack and you just flip to the back to see if you got a shiny or not. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's that, right? The quantity versus the quality. I want to say that. And as someone who enjoys both games, like I still play Pokemon Pocket. I like it. I still, when I want to play a card game, I play Marvel Snap. Like that's just the way I feel right now, right?
Yep. Here's the thing. And I know Twitter thinks it's like they're in their bubble and that everybody's on board. I think Snap is still a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I still very much enjoy Marvel Snap. Very much. The problem is I'm a creator, right? And luckily, this is my job. So I purchased the cards for my job to create content for you guys. So I then get access to the cards and have more fun because I get to have more fun because I have more cards and I get to do that. The issue is my viewers and everybody else is so restricted on that. And that's why I don't blame them. That's why I don't blame people for feeling like it's not as fun. And like, hey, Cozy, you cope. It's fun. It's fun for me because I literally have access to so much deck design and building, and I love it. I'm addicted to it. I think it's so incredibly well done, forming and putting together decks and finding new ones. But that being said, that's why I think draft mode, and we always talk about it, why I think that game mode's so good is it allows that feeling for everybody. And that's what I want the most.
Yeah, it gives like an even playing field. And I see that a lot. Like I see it in my brother actually, because like here and there, my brother like on Twitch drops and stuff, he'll actually stream for me for a few hours while I'm at work and stuff. Cause like it's a way that I like, it's my brother and I, we share a love for Marvel Snap. And it's one of the ways that like we kind of have some bonding time. It's a lot of fun. But like at the same time, he's on stream and he does like the season pass. He'll buy like a bundle here and there if it features an ongoing card that he plays. He literally buys bundles for the variants. And live on stream, he'll be like, oh, I only have 2 keys, guys. Like he has 2 keys. He's like, do you want me to roll for Malekith? And I was like, yeah, roll for it. And he literally strikes out. He's like, well, I guess we're not playing Malekith today, guys. I'll try to grind for another one. And then he gets another key and then rolls and gets a duplicate and everyone's in shambles. And like, so like, I totally feel like the Dolphin players and like how like these gotcha mechanics have kind of really slowed down progression. But yeah, I still really do enjoy playing Marvel Snap. And I do hope that they kind of go to the drawing board and say to themselves, okay, how can we recapture the magic we had before, get people back into the ecosystem. I mean, the card art's second to none. It's absolutely beautiful. The gameplay's fantastic. And if I can, Cozy, can I pitch something? I have a game mode idea I'd like to pitch. I think this is the right time to, we're talking about game modes here, Cozy. Can I pitch a game mode I've been thinking about?
Pitch it.
Pitch it? You ready though? Like, are you ready?
I'm prepared.
All right, you're prepared. Okay, listen to this. I'm calling this, and listen, Glenn and the entire Snap team, this is completely open. Please steal this idea and even make it better. Snap roulette. Okay? Listen to this. Imagine, okay, you do a best of 3 with no cubes. That's the match. A best of 3 with no cubes. Each round, a random deck is assigned to you by Gambit. He throws you a pack of cards. Okay, Gambit's like the main guy. Throws you a set of cards. Each card or each deck is actually, it represents an individual archetype.
Okay.
So let's say there's 20 in the pool. One is going to be the Asgard deck. The other one's going to be the Zoo deck. The other one's going to be the Destroy deck. And they have like all the different archetypes. And Glenn, he goes in advance and he makes sure that generally speaking, all the decks are roughly the same strength. Okay? Gambit throws you a deck. Gambit throws your opponent a deck. You have Zoo. They got, Tribunal. You play it out, they take the first match. You go to round 2. A new deck is thrown your way. Boom. You got Destroy. Boom. They get on Reveal Wong. Okay, you play, you win. Goes to the 3rd. Boom. You get a random deck. It is, I don't know, Snowguard, blah, 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 whatever. Loki, they get something else. And you play, winner takes whatever. You progress through some manner, whatever. They'll figure out the gamification of it, the progression. But I had this idea that, like, imagine you had a whole bunch of decks and they were randomly assigned to you in a best of 3. And here's the best thing. You want to talk about retention, Cozy? You want to talk about getting players back in? At the end of it, the reward is that you get to pick one of the decks that you get to keep with all the cards, Series 5 and everything in there. So a new player who's playing this mode that might not have all the cards, and they're like, hey man, that Destroy deck with Null and with Zola, I don't even have those cards yet. I want to play that one. And they get to pick the Destroy deck and they get the Series 5 cards. How awesome would that be, dude?
You had me to the end. I think the end would never happen. I do, but can I say an alternative to it? I think the game was fun. I love that. I thought you were going to go with like the Wheel of Snap thing. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's a banger concept. But I love the idea of the different deck archetypes because it leans into something that I was going to bring up, which I also think this solves, right? So just, you can add that as a game mode with different rewards, right? Like there's different stuff for just playing it because that's the point of it. But what I think Snap needs, and this is what Pocket actually introduced, and I think they did it good, is rental decks. I think if those decks, the 20 that were there, would be, you could rent them and go in and test them and play with them, right? And Pocket does rental decks. I think it's so cool. If you're able to do the Asgardian deck and then go and test it out for a little bit and be like, okay, I got pretty good with that one. I hope I can draw that one. And they always just keep those up for rent, to be able to be played. That solves the issue of being able to play with those cards at least and being able to rent the deck or whatever. Even if they do a cooldown system that you can pay to refresh, whatever they do there, fine. But it'd be cool to give the rental decks from that game mode. I think that's a fire idea. I think that's Gambit's Roulette. That's it. And it comes down to, I've seen it, man, and it's, I hate corporate-y responses, like from, especially like just communication. It's like, I don't want that, guys. Just like level with us. And it's like your voice matters, and that's what they're trying to preach, which I appreciate. I do. I really do. But make it matter, right? Get our feedback and look for it and on a level where it's visible, right? And we're not getting that. I can promise you as creators, we're not getting that. And we're like the most reachable to them, I feel like. But they could also do polls, things like that. If our voices matter, you gotta put your money where your mouth is and literally make it matter, make the communications matter. And I know it's a small team, but the time isn't going to the right place. Point blank, period. I've said it to the devs and want to keep seeing it. So it's far from dead. I'd crack up at those thumbnails. I can make a video tomorrow. The rise and fall of Snap, and I'd get 1 billion views, but it's just, it ain't true. But I do have a lot of issues with it, and I might even have a video on that eventually. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming to this episode of the Snapchat. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Keep having fun out there. Don't take it too seriously. Have a good time. And go to Alex's side of Snapchat to hear all about Fenris, what we thought the best cards in Snap right now, and the Snapchat mailbag. Have a good one. Have a great one. Till the next one, happy snapping.